up, everyone? This is Peter Jennings. I go by CSU Ram 88 across the daily fantasy industry. I'm back again here at Fantasy Labs doing a model preview for the Byron Nelson Championship. I was very close to having a great week with the players, so hoping I can have a great week here with the Byron Nelson Championship, and hopefully this video will help you guys this week in PGA. So looking at this specific tournament, we talked about it on the podcast. One thing we're still trying to decipher is how to weight course history here, because they did redo the greens. So that's one big element, but I am weighting it still, and I will be weighting more recent course history results than in the past. So I think it's really important to identify how to use course history, and something that I've definitely evolved in over the last couple months, working on PGA really hard with Fantasy Labs and just learning from Colin. So one thing we're both trying to get better at is incorporating the right type of course history and the right course history to evaluate. So I'll dive into that a little bit more in a bit, but I'll go through my model now quickly. Pretty standard model this week. I'm weighting long-term adjusted round score like I always do at 20 to 30 points. I chose 27 this week just because it zeroed out. I have long-term driving distance at 6 points. I did end up weighting bombers because even though it's a par 70, there are some really long par 4s. And if you look at more recent history, some of these bombers have done really well, guys like Dustin Johnson. So I think it's important, and I'm definitely going to weight it pretty heavily. You'll see here. I birdie scored 2 points, and I really wanted to do this for the video. I think it's really important to start looking at birdies and just how to identify guys who are going to potentially make a lot of birdies at the course. So that's one other thing I'm looking at with course history is which guys, especially with the course redesign, which guys have made a lot of birdies in their rounds. And you can look at golfers that just make a lot of birdies in general and tend to throw birdie streaks together, which is obviously a DraftKings bonus. We know Jason Day, Rory McIlroy are great at that. So there's other golfers too, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here soon. Recent adjusted round at 15, and that's one thing. I've toggled with this and the recent green and regulation score a good bit. I don't mind bringing the recent adjusted round score even farther down, but I did keep it here in addition to the recent green and regulation score. I think the recent green and regulation score is a huge part of my model every week because it really helps me identify which guys are striking the ball well coming in. And there's a lot of noise and a lot of variance in golf, and certain guys could make a really long putt or chip in or whatever to make the cut, and some guys might 4-putt from whatever distance to miss the cut by one stroke. And there's a lot of noise there, and that changes the results dramatically, obviously. But I'm going to look at the green regulation score, especially recently, to kind of identify which guys I think are in good form in terms of ball striking. So I've done that every week, and it's something I'm going to continue to do. So if we look here, the rest of it, I have recent driving distance at 12 points. I'm rating that a little bit higher than the long term. I think you can do either or, but I want to see which guys are hitting the ball well now. And then if you scroll even farther down, I have 8 points for the course adjusted round, which I don't think captures course history perfectly because we have older data when the greens were different. So that's something that I think you should look at as well, is just which guys have done well more recently, and I'll talk about that here. So looking at what it spit out, I don't mind Sergio and Louis. I've heard of Louis touted a good bit. I think these guys are both good players. They're rating well in my model because they both hit the ball pretty far and have great green and regulation scores. I'm not in love with them, especially in comparison to Dustin Johnson. I like Dustin Johnson quite a bit more in this range. I think he's just a better course fit. I think he has better history, and I just like the upside of Dustin Johnson here versus these guys. I know he's a lot more expensive, but I do like him quite a bit. Lucas Glover popping for me all over. I think he's a great play. I've heard him touted quite a bit. He's a guy who hits a ton of greens, great ball striker. The knock on him is putting. And from what I've understood and just from hearing things, the way the greens are set up now kind of helps the bad putters, just because everything kind of funnels towards the hole, and it's a lot easier to 2-putt on these greens than even last week, especially last week on Saturday. So I like Glover a lot. He pops for me here. There's some other bad putters that I'll talk about that I kind of like this week. Gary Woodland here. This is a guy who's been doing really well. I had some intel that he was going through a swing change, but he's done nothing but play well since I had that intel. So I'll have exposure to him in GPPs and see what happens. He's definitely been playing well. Brooks Koepka, one of my favorite plays of the week. Played really well last week and just kind of didn't do well on the weekend, which no one played well on Saturday, and a lot of guys who put up big numbers on Saturday kind of just fizzled out on Sunday as well. So Brooks was looking like he was going to make a charge, didn't quite do it, but I like the form that I saw from him. Charlie Hoffman, I don't like him as much as these other guys in this range, which could easily burn me. Obviously, he's a Texas guy. He's been playing well this year. Wouldn't shock me to see him do well, but I'll probably be fading him for the most part. Kuchar, another guy who's going to be pretty heavily owned. I think a lot of people are going to be on him. He played well last week, and Kuchar's just very, very solid, great cash game play. You look at Kuchar's game log, you're playing cash games. This is kind of what you want to see. Just doesn't miss cuts, really. I mean, Arnold Palmer he missed, but outside of that, I mean, you're looking at all these tournaments, he's just grinding it out. And he's consistently hitting a good bit of greens, and, he's a guy that's a very solid cash game play. Moving a little bit farther down, I like Spieth for tournaments. I love Danny Lee here. And Keegan Bradley's one of my favorite plays, too. Switched his caddy, played well last week, has good course history here, and I'm on Keegan. So he's a guy that's popping for me. Also pretty high on Ryan Palmer, who's down here. Charles Howell III, Colin talked about in the podcast, is another good play. And then the last couple guys I'm going to talk about are Graham Dillette and Bryson DeChambeau. When you talk about courses that don't favor elite putters and actually give a benefit to the bad putters, Graham Dillette has to pop. He has good course history here too, so I think I'm going to be considering him. And then Bryson DeChambeau, I'm going to have him in tournaments. I'm not going to get too much into him, but he's a really nice play in my opinion. And the one guy who I'm surprised is rating so low in this model is Jason Duffner. Heard him touted quite a bit, has good history here. Coming in playing relatively well if we look at his game log. He's had some nice finishes. Obviously nothing great at the Players, but he was in a better position there. Missed the cut at the Masters, but before that, no missed cuts really for a while and some decent form. So I think he's a fine play here, and he's kind of figured out where he stands on the tour and just how he should attack courses. And I do like what I'm seeing just with the eye test with Jason Duffner. So that's the gist of the Players here. I hope this really helps you guys. I think it's a really interesting week. I'll be on Twitter tonight, so if you have any questions, hit me up at CSURAM88, especially pertaining to the weather. I need to do a little bit more research on it tonight, and that's going to be a big factor in determining which guys I really love this week is based on tee times and if there is an advantage there with the weather. So hope this helps again. I'm hoping to bounce back this week, and as always, I'm looking forward to seeing more Fantasy Lab subscribers at the top of the leaderboard.